Hi, I'm Starry, and I'm back with the mid-month update of my first ever art fight. Did I finish my hit list? Have I been attacked? And most importantly, did I keep my expectations realistic? Last time, I told you all about my game plan. First half of the month, I focus on attacks. I have a hit list of the minimum 12 I was planning on doing, and then on the second half of the month, I focus on my revenges. And because I can't let Artfight consume my entire month of July, we are only going to spend a maximum of 6 hours a day on drawing. So theoretically, since we're halfway done, I should have 12 attacks completed, and I should have only spent a maximum of 6 hours a day drawing, right? Right? Well, let's do it day by day and see just exactly how well that went. On my last video, we ended on day 1, 3 hours right before the official start of Artfight. And I said I was planning on editing that video for the next 3 hours and then working on my first Artfight attack. Well, I kind of forgot how long video editing can take, so I ended up spending all of day 1 and only a little part of day 2 working on editing that video. So, in regards to not drawing for over 6 hours that day, I would say that's a win, right? But moving along to day 2, I earnestly began my first attack. It's this animation I had planned for a comic and their characters Rushka and Rishek. I love these characters so much, but I'm not going to go into all the details about my process and my thinking of how I decided to make each attack. This video is more for just recording my journey and experience going through my first ever art fight. I'll probably make a separate video just for breaking that down and kind of going over what I did for each attack. By the end of day 2, I spent my designated 6 hours of drawing and I felt pretty good. I haven't gone over, I made some decent progress, and then the next 2 days happened. On day 3, I spent 11 hours trying to finish this animation, and I hadn't finished it. So on day 4, I continued and I drew for 9 hours. Yeah, not under 6 hours by any means. Okay, I know the month just started, but I was feeling antsy. I was already 4 days into Artfight and I hadn't posted a single attack, and I felt like I had to get this done. And I just wanted to have at least one attack by the end of the week on my page. And I did, in fact, post my first attack on Artfight by the end of day 4. I did estimate that this would only take me 12 hours, but if you've been doing the math, that's a gross underestimation. It's been a while since I've animated anything, and I completely forgot how long these things can take sometimes. Can you blame me? It ended up taking 26 hours. Yeah, that's over half the amount I estimated, so a little bit of a rough start on how long these pieces are going to take me, but it's an animation. Of course it's gonna take a while. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm very proud about how this one turned out. I think it showcases the dynamics between the two characters as well, and if you really dig into the lore, it all makes sense. But that was a great way to end day 4, and day 5, I woke up to my first ever attack. Just look at it, it's so beautiful. I couldn't believe my first ever attack had so much effort and thought put into it, and he's just so cute and I love it so much. It's so pretty. And this is where I deviate from the game plan. I know. I already messed up by spending so much time on the first attack and spending way over my daily allotted drawing that time limit for 2 of the days. But it's my first attack! And it would feel rude not to revenge them right away. I mean, not really, but I just feel obligated to. So instead of working on my second attack, I decided to do my first revenge very early. So I spent the rest of day 5 working on Mercury's, aka Stardust and Ashes, character Aspen. I really dig their design and the butterfly motif, which I wanted to incorporate into the drawing. Initially in the game plan, I was only planning to spend maybe 3 or 4 hours on revenges just in case I got a bunch so I could retaliate faster, I guess. But this piece took me 9.5 hours, so. But good news. Day 5, I had only spent 5.5 hours drawing that day, and day 6, well. Okay, so for day 6, I had to finish Aspen's drawing, so I spent 4 hours of that time working on that. But then I still had like 2 hours of allotted drawing time to spend. So of course I was like, I'll work on another attack. And so I spent those extra drawings hours left in the day to draw Tibbs. Tibbs was actually created by Monokuma-sans, who is actually a Tumblr mutual of mine. I love this character so much, and I knew I could finish this drawing in about 3 hours, so I wanted to get it done that day, and my time estimation was indeed correct. I ended up taking 3 hours and 15 minutes to be more precise. While it did allow me to finish my second hitless attack, it did push me into the 7.5 hour mark for drawing that day. Whoops, but look at the 2 drawings I was able to finish. Aren't they beautiful? Really like how the color palette turned out on Aspen's drawing, and Tibbs is just so silly goofy. I loved how I rendered it out. Day 7 started off with me drawing Kelda, my third attack. She was designed by Sapuxa, and I was really excited to draw this one because I just love her vibes, and I had an interesting idea for the composition to have her hands coming out of the frame. I projected that this would take me 6 hours, which would allow me to finish it by the end of the day without going over my allotted time, but I was having such a hard time with her eyes. Because of that, I ended up pushing it to 7 hours instead, which I still think isn't too bad for my daily allotted time. I was over an hour. Oh well, it's fine. Or at least it would have been if I also hadn't decided to start drawing again later that night. Look, I was on Discord voice chat with my friends, and I was taking a break from gaming, and we were just hanging out and chatting. So I was like, let's draw while we're just chilling for an hour. I can't help it. I'm addicted. So day 7 ended up being 8 hours of drawing instead of the 7, but you know, it's fine. So day 8, I finished the drawing that I was working on the previous day. These two are Hugh Tinga and Li Qing, who were designed by Rueful Skies. My initial thumbnail sketch I had for these two had a bit more of a somber composition in mind, but I decided to be a little less complex and draw something cute and maybe a little simpler. But then I thought it would also be kind of fun to animate this, so I ended up doing that. So on this day, I ended up spending about 3 more hours on it for a total of 4 hours, which is pretty fast considering that I also did a little bit of animation. I've been doing a lot of lineless rendered work for Artfight just because I'm trying to be more experimental, and it's honestly a deviation from what I usually draw, which is like line art and like colors. So this was kind of going back to what I'm used to, which is just doing some line art and some flats and a little bit of shading, which is probably why I was able to finish it relatively quickly. It ended up turning out super cute, although I do wish I could have better animated the jacket also floating up. It doesn't really read as well as her hair does, but still super happy with how it turned out overall. I ended up having some extra time again, so I was like, it's time to draw a little bit more. And of course, it's me, so it didn't really end up just being a little bit more, but It's fine. I decided to draw my second most ambitious piece for what I had planned for my attacks, which is Gully, who was created by Azriel Creates. Her design is water related and celestial, which was just everything I love in a drawing. I love rendering water, so I knew I was going to be extra when I made this, so I estimated I would probably take 12 hours on this piece. And well, it was rough, guys. I'm gonna be honest. It was really rough. So on day 8, I ended up getting kind of locked in on really sketching this out and getting the composition just right. So I ended up day 8 with my total just under 7.5 hours, which a fail again, but it's not terrible. But oof, man, day 9. Day 9 was kind of a breaking point for me. I could just feel the burnout encroaching on me. And so after a very unfocused 2.5 hours, I decided to take a break for the rest of the day. I did end up drawing a little something for something that was not related to Artfight as a bit of a breather, but I just needed a break, I think, at that point. As I was taking a break to avoid burnout, because that's the goal, we're not trying to burn out here, we're trying to be sustainable and realistic. I had to reset my expectations because I was looking at it and I was on day 9 and I had done 5 out of the 12 attacks, and I had 5 days left until it would be the middle of the month, which means I had to do 7 more attacks, and the math wasn't mathing. Was I going to get 12 attacks done by the 14th? Absolutely not. But you know what? That's fine. I still have some time to finish all the attacks by the end of the month, and I've only been attacked Oh! Update, I just received my second attack, and oh my goodness, it's so cute. And they drew all 3 of my characters as crayons. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Ahem. As I was saying, I've only been attacked twice now. Thank you very much, Lumi. And since I already revenged one of them, that only left me with 7 attacks and 1 revenge to do for the rest of the month. So I figured I could just keep trucking along, but attempt to be a bit stricter with my 6 hours of drawing a day because I did not want to burn out. Remember, no burnout. With this in mind, I started day 10 a little bit more refreshed mentally, but after 2 hours of drawing Gali, I just couldn't anymore. I think I was just overwhelmed with the amount of work that was going to go into this piece, and I knew it was going to take way more than 6 hours to finish it, so I wouldn't get it done in time for day 10. So I decided to swap over to a new attack and also to give me a little bit of a break from all the tedious rendering. So I swapped over to a completely new attack and started my drawing for Curly and Steve, who were created by Now, aka Morutasic. I have a low-key love of clowns and jesters, so I was really excited to work on this piece, and I had a pretty clear vision of how stylized and different I want. Because it was more stylized and less realistic, it ended up only getting done in 4.5 hours, which was pretty substantially lower than my 6-hour estimation, which I'm super happy about because that means I can churn out a little bit more art. The final piece ended up so quirky and cute and different from my usual art, so I was really happy I was able to experiment with how stylized it was going to be. I ended up ending day 10 with only 6.5 hours of drawing, which is a lot better than what I've been doing lately, so really happy about that. And on day 11, I started the day strong again, working on Gali, but oh man, I had to take a lot of breaks. I just was getting really bogged down and exhausted with all of the details and parts, and I had to keep taking notes. I don't know if the time lapse has shown it at this point, but I would take little notes about everything I needed to work on because otherwise I would be staring at it and just making mental notes and then doing that every 15 minutes and then feeling overwhelmed. So I started just writing it out on a separate layer so I could make sure I got it done and I wouldn't forget all the details I had planned to make. But anyway, I tapped out after 2.5 hours and I decided to start a new attack again, but I'll talk about that a little one later since I didn't end up finishing it today. Day 11 ended up with only 6.5 hours of drawing. I will say my track time, funnily enough, for both days, I timed it out exactly to 6 hours and 37 minutes, which is an odd coincidence, but technically I still failed to be under my 6 hour allotted time, but I'm doing better. When day 12 rolled along, I was so determined to finish Gali no matter what. I had locked in, I had to focus because I was just so close at this point, and there were just a few things that needed rendering out, and I just had to lock in. And so, after 4.5 more hours, I finally finished. And it only took me 16 hours. Something about this drawing was so taxing. I love rendering water, but I think it was just all of the different parts. And then I think also the pressure of being like, I need to finish an attack soon. And this is taking way too long. Kind of got to me, but it's done and I'm pretty happy with it. I love it a lot, but there's a lot that I feel like still could use work, like the lighting. I felt like I just hadn't nailed it quite yet. Hey, Starry. Yes? You're grounded from drawing for the rest of the day. What? You're starting to feel burnt out and your wrist is in shambles. But Starry. No buts. Get off Krita. Ugh, fine. At least let me finish submitting this attack, okay? Oh, I wouldn't quite say I got jumped, but 3 attacks all at the same time was quite the gut punch. And now I'm just doubled over on the floor and just looking at these super lovely and amazing attacks. I mean, just look at them. This one is hilarious. I love it so much. And this one's so cute. I mean, just look at Kai and Holly. And then Ravi in this art style. Oh, I could just spend all day talking about these. And I was very, very tempted to start sketching out ideas for my revenges. But the game plan, I have to stick to the game plan. Also, I'm technically grounded, so I wasn't allowed to draw for the rest of the day. So, day 12, we ended off with just those 4.5 hours of drawing and 3 new revenges to do. With my mind, body, and soul newly replenished thanks to those lovely attacks I received, I set out on day 13 to finish the drawing I started a few days ago. Quick content warning, there is some blood on this drawing. It's gold colored instead of red, but if you don't want to see that, jump to this timestamp. My next attack was for Shiasi and Jericho, who were created by Cheddar Breader. The character permission said gore was encouraged, so I decided to go with it. This one went pretty smoothly, no complaints here, though it did take me a bit longer than I would have liked because I kinda got lost in the detail sauce. Between the 2 days I spent on this, it took me around 9 hours, which is a couple hours more than what I projected. I spent 5.5 hours finishing that specific attack, and I saw that I had a little bit more time to draw some more. So, of course, I started another drawing and then went over my daily allotted time. There's a trend here if you haven't noticed. But the drawing I started was for Nebula, who was created by Nebulily. I kind of wanted to finish Nebula by the end of that day, but that didn't happen and I had to go to bed. So I finished off day 13 just under 7 hours of drawing, which is only a teensy bit over, so not bad, but still a failure. And now it's day 14, which is today. I spent some of this morning finishing up Nebula and got her posted, and you know what? She only took me 2 hours to draw. I think the reason I was able to get it out so fast is that her design is very geometric, so it was pretty easy to draw even in perspective. And the second reason is I didn't really fully render the work. I did flat colors, even though it was lineless, it was pretty simple because they were simple shapes, and I just kind of went a little crazy with the star brushes I had, so it's pretty good. As of right now, I only have 30 minutes of drawing done today. Since I do plan on editing this video today as well, I probably won't hit over 6 hours, so I consider today a success in that regard. Future editor Starry will correct me if I'm wrong. Now that we're done with the day by day, we can do a quick recap of how the first 2 weeks of my very first art fight went. I finished 8 attacks and 1 revenge. That leaves 4 attacks and 4 revenges left for the rest of the month. I'm not sure how many more people will attack me from now to the end of Artfight, but I still think that's pretty manageable. I just probably should run some numbers. Based on how things went so far, I'm going to give myself about 6 to 7 hours for the 4 attacks I have left on my hit list. And then I would like to keep my revenges down to only 3 to 4 hours. So we're looking at a total of about 36 to 44 hours, which with 6 hours of drawing per day equals to about 6 to 8 days. That's super manageable. And that also gives me like an extra week for any more revenges I need to do by the end of the month. So as long as I stick to the game plan, I think we'll be a-okay by the end of the month. If you've been keeping track, you probably figured it out by now, but for the 14 days of Artfight, I kept to my allotted maximum of 6 hours of drawing per day 6 times, which is less than 50%. But if you count the 2 days I did 6.5 hours of drawing, because that's only barely over, my total success rate is 57%. So, not great, but I'm going to get better and stricter because we need to make sure I keep everything realistic and not burn out. So here's a little bit of a side-by-side of all the thumbnails I made and the estimated amount of time I thought they would take versus the final piece and how much time it actually ended up taking. My accuracy on my time estimation is kind of rough, but I think I generally stayed in range. The outlier being Gali and the animation I made for Comic. Some of them took more or less time, but I think I tended to get within an hour. If I really wanted to, I could probably punch the numbers and look at the standard deviations and see if it's actually as accurate as I'm vibing out this to be. But I don't have time for that. I think generally I'd say my estimation was pretty good because I hadn't really been timing myself for how long I do all my art pieces. It's always been kind of just like a vibe. And how long does Discord say I've been on Krita? But now that I'm being more diligent with my time tracking, I think it's been kind of nice to kind of be able to get a better estimation about why something might take longer or might take less time. And I think that's really valuable information as an artist, especially if you plan on doing commissions in the future. It just allows you to price your comms appropriately. But even if you don't ever plan on making commission, it is still good data to have handy so you can estimate how long it takes you to draw something if you're ever working with a deadline. If you haven't been tracking your time for your tasks, maybe consider starting. I'm still kind of bad at starting and stopping the timer, but as I start to do it more and more, I remember to do it more and more. Now that we're 2 weeks into Artfight, I feel like that it's a good time to reset my expectations since I kind of have a feel for how everything is going now. The biggest thing I don't want to happen at the end of this month is for me to burn out from drawing. So I think I just really need to be firmer with keeping my daily allotted 6 hours of drawing and not going over that. I'm willing to overlook 10 to 15 minutes, but I really shouldn't be making that a habit. I also think that it would just be good for the sake of my body health because those long drawing days are not great for me. I also think my game plan is good in theory, but I have to strictly adhere to it if I want to be effective. Obviously, life can't always go as planned, but I would like to stay generally on track if I can help it. So how is your art fight going? Did you come in with the game plan and have you stuck to it? Or maybe you're just winging it, trying it out. Is this your first year, your 10th year? Have you only had time for one attack, or are you churning out a bunch super quickly? I'd love to hear how everyone's art fight is going down in the comments. That's all I have for this video. I will definitely be updating you at the end of Artfight about how everything ended up. Good luck everyone with all your endeavors, whether that's drawing or something else, and have a very, very fun rest of your Artfight. Bye!